pray, do you get a response?
Oh, it's like he's physically in me. It's how he guides me.
My little savior.
Blood dripping on the floor, pouring from matted, sodden hair. A body lying on a gurney. This is the first image of St. Maud. A disorientating bodily texture marred by pain, presented without context or understanding. For debut writer-director Rose Glass, the priority is clear. Horror is all about feeling. The plot kicks off with Maud, a hospice nurse who comes to work for Amanda Cole. In the film's opening minutes, Maud prays, hangs a crucifix in her tiny, grotty bedsit, and arrives at Cole's cavernous house. Amanda is this tempestuous ex-prima ballerina who somehow ended up in this beaten-up coastal town in the UK. Maud is an extremely devout, nigh-on puritanical nurse trying to deliver palliative care. Despite the contrast between the two, Maud seems to be a little enticed by Cole's life, her focus on pleasure and aesthetics. And as it transpires, Maud's faith is actually kind of singular. Although she's a deep believer, she's also apparently a recent convert. She doesn't appear to attend a particular church, and her ideas about God definitely don't match up with the common Book of Prayer definition. Her experience of faith instead seems to be more direct. She communes directly with God through the universe, entering a trance state that seems almost orgasmic. All of this comes to a head when, after a particularly deep conversation with Amanda, Maud takes it on herself to become her self-proclaimed saviour. Throughout St. Maud, Glass shows a remarkably assured skill in balancing the interconnected themes of the film. It's not just an examination of dogmatic faith, severe mental illness, end-of-life care, or repressed desire, but a careful dissection of the ways in which those things might interact. I was reminded of Julie Kristeva. She's a philosopher who's an exponent of some of the weirder bits of critical theory, and her main focus throughout her work has been the idea of the abject, a mode of communication that sits between the rational world and the physical one, that exists in conflicts between the two. For Kristeva, horror exists to allow us to safely confront these conflicts between our two modes of communication, hence why that genre is so filled with madness and repulsive physical images. For Maud, her faith seems to be a response to some past trauma. Faced with inexplicable and painful circumstances, she sublimates that into a belief into a higher power, which can only be appeased by self-harm and other great acts of sacrifice. The same is true to some extent for Amanda as well. She seems so self-assured early in the film, but is actually terribly alone in her suffering. She's paying a woman to have sex with her and sees her body as rejecting itself as she slowly dies. In their interactions, Maud is definitely attracted to Amanda, who I think kind of foolishly encourages Maud's religious feelings. There's almost certainly some element of sexual attraction from Maud as well, or at least jealousy. And because these feelings are verboten for her, Maud reinterprets them in her dogmatic, self-defined worldview. Amanda must be saved. It's in that tension that the horror of the film really starts to come out, and boy does it ever. So in communicating that story, Glass zeroes in on painful sensory images. There's scab picking, self-harm, vomit, frothing at the mouth, the list goes on. In one scene, Maud carefully places pins in her shoes so that she's in pain every time she walks. That's some perceived way of communicating with a cosmic force through this sort of ceaseless penance. Now, far from gratuitous, this is actually how Glass makes us inhabit the religious viewpoint of her lead character. We feel Maud's pain, see her ecstatic and terrifying visions of God and his interventions in the world. The film is littered with these extraordinary, revelatory moments of faith, as though through what seems to be some sort of delirious delusion, Maud comes to experience everything in her life as having a religious meaning. And you, as the viewer, are fully immersed in that world, one that's simultaneously as small as a bedsit and as huge as the universe, where love and suffering are the one and same. It's a titanic act of creative transubstantiation from Glass, and one that marks her instantly as a talent to watch. A24 is right to market her alongside Eggers and Astor, and in moments of this film, I think her talent surpasses them. Similar praise should be heaped on Morfydd Clark, the astonishing lead of the film. Faced with an unenviable task, I think, in making the pious Maud into a living and breathing character, Clark imbues her with this incredibly detailed realism, making the fantastical elements of the film feel all the more weighty. In fact, in my internal ranking of horror performances, she's right up there with Sissy Spacek in Carrie. And for similar reasons, because for all its twists and turns, the best special effect in St. Maud is Morfydd Clark. Jennifer Ely also smoulders away in a layered performance as Amanda, carefully towing this line of the kind of self-declared tormentor seducer of Maud, while also sketching out a meaningful and quite tragic character arc in her own right. So, St. Maud is one of the best films of the year, one of the best horrors I've seen in years, and you might not even be able to see it in cinemas because of COVID. In a year with so many bad things, this is of course one of the smaller ones, but I really hope you'll get a chance to see St. Maud in the cinemas, and hopefully soon. That's it from me, but as ever, I'd love to chat about this astonishing horror debut in the comments below. So stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.